Jiggy! Adrian Russell froze. At the sink, crying like something inside her had broken, was a woman he didn't recognize. Her back was trembling, her hands gripped the counter, and wrapped around her like he'd been born there was Joe, his son. Legs locked around her waist, arms around her neck. Adrian's voice caught in his throat. The teddy bear he'd brought from Manhattan slipped from his hand and hit the tile. 3 weeks away, and this is what he came home to. Not a daddy, not a hug, not even a glance. Just his boy, clinging to a stranger, crying like the world had ended. The woman turned slowly, tear-streaked face, eyes red and swollen. "I'm sorry, sir," she whispered. "He won't let go." Joe's tiny voice broke through the silence. "Don't take her, Daddy. Please." Adrian's world shifted, right there, under kitchen lights and heartbreak. And for the first time in his life, he had no idea what to say. Adrian hadn't expected fanfare. He knew Joe might be shy after 3 weeks, knew he might need time to warm up, but he imagined something, a smile, a small run toward him, a giggle, not silence, not sobbing, and certainly not this woman. He tried to speak, tried to find his voice somewhere beneath the jet lag and the cold shock, but his mouth stayed dry. His eyes stayed on his son, whose small fingers were now twisted tightly into the folds of the woman's apron. The last time Adrian held him, it was in a glass hotel suite in San Francisco. Joe had waved goodbye on FaceTime, lips puckered to the screen. Now he wouldn't even look at him. "I'm Priscilla," the woman said softly, her arms gently supporting Joe's weight. "We spoke. The agency sent me." He searched his memory. There had been a voicemail. Something about a last-minute change. He hadn't followed up. Joe's shoulders shook. His breath came out in small, broken gasps against her neck. Priscilla didn't flinch. She didn't ask him to let go. She just held him, like she'd been doing it for a while. Adrian stepped forward, slowly. The teddy bear still lay on the floor behind him, forgotten. "I brought this for you," he said, voice unsure. Joe didn't respond. Priscilla swallowed hard. He has nightmares, almost every night." Her voice cracked, but she held it steady. "I stay with him until he can fall asleep again." Adrian felt the weight of those words land in his chest. Heavy, unforgiving. He remembered an email flagged as "not urgent." He never opened it. Joe pressed his face deeper into her shoulder, as if he could hide from the world and from his father. Adrian took another step, then stopped. He wasn't sure if he had the right to come any closer. Before we continue, click subscribe, like this video, and tell us where in the world you're watching from. I hope this video makes you believe kindness comes from the heart. Adrian's jaw tightened. The silence between them felt louder than the sobs. He took a breath, steady, practiced. "Joe," he said again, softer this time. "It's me, buddy. Daddy's home." Joe flinched but didn't move. Adrian's eyes flicked to Priscilla. Her grip on the boy hadn't loosened. He didn't like the way that made him feel. "I'd like to speak to you," he said, eyes narrowing slightly. "Alone." Priscilla's spine straightened, but she didn't move either. "He doesn't want me to let go," she said quietly. "I tried." He cried harder. Adrian stared at her. Why was he crying in the first place? She hesitated, just for a second. Then her voice landed flat, without drama. "Because he told me he wished I was his mom." The words hung like smoke in the air. Adrian blinked. "What?" Priscilla's eyes glistened, but her face stayed calm. "He misses something. I just happened to be here when he needed someone." Joe let out a shaky breath. Priscilla's hand moved gently along his back, almost without thinking. It wasn't rehearsed. It was muscle memory. Adrian took a slow step forward. "I didn't know things had gotten this bad." "You weren't here to know," she said, almost apologetically. "Neither was I at first. I was supposed to just clean." She looked at him now. Really looked. No fear. Just honesty. "But then I heard him crying through the walls. First night. Then the next. And the next. Eventually," she glanced down at Joe. I couldn't pretend it wasn't happening. Adrian's stomach churned. Guilt crept in, quiet and sharp. Joe finally lifted his head, just slightly. His cheeks were blotchy, his lashes wet. He looked at Adrian with the kind of fear only a child can carry. The kind that says, "You left me. Will you leave again?" Adrian stepped back. He couldn't answer that yet. Adrian leaned against the counter, one hand gripping the edge like it might anchor him. Priscilla's eyes followed his movement, not accusing, just waiting. "He has nightmares?" Adrian asked, quieter now. She nodded. "Almost every night. He wakes up calling for someone. Anyone." Her voice cracked, but she pushed through. "I tried to just leave the light on at first. I thought maybe he'd settle, but..." She looked down at the boy in her arms. "He didn't." Adrian's throat tightened. "He tells me stories," she went on. "Little pieces of you, your office, your plane, the teddy bear, how you said you'd be back soon." She let the silence breathe before finishing. "But then he asks why soon takes so long." Adrian swallowed hard. The room suddenly felt smaller, like the air had thickened. "I didn't know the nanny quit," he murmured. "You missed the agency's follow-up," she replied gently. "They said you were too busy to speak." He didn't argue, couldn't. Priscilla adjusted Joe slightly, her hand never leaving his back. "I didn't try to replace anyone," she said. "I just stayed. When he cried, I stayed." Joe sniffled against her shoulder, still quiet, still watching his father from a safe distance. "He asked if I could sing to him, said his old nanny used to before she left. So I did. Just a lullaby my grandmother sang to me when I was small." Her tone stayed simple. She wasn't defending herself, just laying truth bare. Adrian looked at his son, his boy, who once couldn't fall asleep without a bedtime call from him. Now he found peace in a stranger's voice. That stranger was no longer a stranger. Not to Joe. Adrian opened his mouth but said nothing. What was there to say? Joe reached up, pulling Priscilla's arm tighter around his small frame. His eyes never left Adrian's, and in that long, aching gaze, Adrian saw it. The question behind the quiet. "Where were you when I needed you?" Adrian stepped out of the kitchen. Not out of anger, not to avoid them. He just needed space to breathe. The hallway felt colder than he remembered. Quiet, but not peaceful. It echoed now. He stopped beside the grand staircase, the one Joe used to race down in socks, laughing, calling for him. That laugh hadn't filled these walls in a while. Adrian leaned against the banister, loosening his tie like it might loosen the knot in his chest. 3 weeks, that's all it had been, but the gap between them felt like miles. He'd been in conference rooms, talking over lawyers and pitching CEOs on vision. In penthouses with skyline views, drinking to another closed deal. He told himself it was for Joe, that one day his son would understand. But Joe didn't want understanding. He wanted someone who showed up at bedtime, someone who noticed when the nightmares started, someone who stayed. Adrian rubbed a hand over his face. His skin felt unfamiliar, tight with regret. He thought money could buy him time, buy him grace, buy him out of mistakes. But Joe wasn't a client. He wasn't an investment, a scared little boy who had cried loud enough for a stranger to hear him through the walls. And that stranger answered, not with permission, not with pay, just with presence. Adrian didn't know what hurt more, the fact that Joe found comfort in someone else, or the fact that Adrian had left him needing it. A faint sound from the kitchen pulled him back. A hiccup, a soft whisper. Joe's voice, still clinging. Adrian pushed off the banister. Whatever came next. He couldn't stand in the hallway anymore. Adrian stepped back into the kitchen. The room hadn't changed, but something in him had. Joe was still in Priscilla's arms, his face tucked tight against her collar. His fingers curled in the fabric like letting go would break something inside him. Adrian paused near the doorway, then slowly lowered himself, down to eye level. No suit, no title, no distance, just a father. Trying. He opened his arms. Not wide, not dramatic, just open. "Joe," he said gently. "Hey, buddy, I'm here now, if you want to come." Joe didn't move. His small body shifted slightly, eyes peeking out, red-rimmed, unsure. No leap, no smile, only silence. Then slowly he began to slide down from Priscilla's hold, one hand still gripping her apron, the other reaching forward like he was testing the air between them. His steps were small, careful, as if the floor might give way. When he reached Adrian, he didn't run, he leaned, pressed his body into his father's chest without a word. Adrian caught him, arms wrapping around him like something sacred. "I'm sorry," he whispered into Joe's hair. "I should have been here." Joe didn't speak, but he didn't let go either. His small arms tightened slightly. Then, barely audible, came the plea. "Don't make her leave." Adrian's throat tightened. He looked up at Priscilla, who stood frozen, hands twisting her apron, eyes wide with fear she couldn't hide. Adrian held his son close, then spoke, not just to her, but to the weight hanging in the room. "I don't want her to leave either." His voice shook. "I thought I hired a maid," he said, "but it looks like he found someone who showed up when I didn't." Priscilla didn't respond. Not yet. But the tears in her eyes said enough. This wasn't just about a job anymore. It hadn't been for a while. The house was still. Joe had fallen asleep curled on the couch, one small hand resting on the teddy bear Adrian almost forgot he brought. In the kitchen, the lights were lower now, softer, less interrogation, more confession. Priscilla stood at the stove, quietly wiping down the surface, not rushing, not lingering, just moving. Adrian leaned against the doorway, watching her. His voice, when it came, was careful. "You didn't have to stay all those nights." She kept wiping, eyes on her hands. "I couldn't pretend he was fine, not when he wasn't." Adrian stepped in, not too close. "I should have known. About the nightmares. About all of it." Priscilla turned slightly, her expression unreadable. "I didn't expect to matter this much," she said, almost like she was admitting a mistake. "I didn't come here to be anything more than what I was hired for." Adrian nodded slowly. "I know." He paused, then added, "But you were here when it counted, and that means more than I can say." Her eyes flicked to his, just once, then back to the cloth in her hand. He took a breath. "If you ever want more, childcare courses, school, anything, just say the word, I'll support it." She froze, the cloth stilled between her fingers. "Why?" she asked softly. "Because you helped my son breathe again," he said. "And I didn't even notice he was suffocating." She blinked, swallowed. "I wasn't trying to take anyone's place." "I know," he said, "but you showed up like someone who could have." For a moment, neither of them moved. The only sound was the faint rhythm of Joe's breathing in the next room, steady now, like it hadn't been in weeks. Priscilla nodded slowly, her voice barely a whisper. "Thank you." Adrian nodded back. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something. The next morning came slow. Grey light filtered through linen curtains. Rain tapped softly on the windows. Priscilla stood near the dining table, folding laundry with practiced calm. The kind of movement that asked for no attention but deserved it. Adrian poured coffee across the room, watching her. "Can I ask you something?" he said. She paused but didn't turn. "Of course." "When did it stop feeling like just a job?" The question landed quietly. She folded a small t-shirt, smoothing the fabric with her palm. "Probably the second night," she said. "He called out for someone. No name. Just a cry." She looked up. "I didn't plan to go in. I sat outside his door for almost an hour, thinking I should wait, that someone else would come." Adrian's stomach tightened. "No one did," she added. "So I did." He nodded slowly, walked over, leaned against the edge of the table. "This house doesn't make it easy to feel like you belong," he admitted. She gave a faint smile. "It wasn't built for warmth." He studied her. "I want to be clear about something," he said. "You don't work for me anymore." You work with me, with us. Priscilla looked at him then, really looked. A mix of relief and doubt flickered in her eyes. I don't want to overstep, she said. I don't want him to get attached and then... She trailed off. The and then didn't need finishing. Adrian understood. You didn't force that bond, he said. You earned it, and I won't take it away from him. Priscilla folded the last shirt and set it down. She didn't smile, but her shoulders relaxed, just slightly. Neither of them said it out loud, but something had shifted. The title had changed. The line had blurred. And in that blur, something unexpected was starting to take root. The smell of burnt toast drifted through the hallway before the sound of the smoke alarm ever did. Adrian fumbled with the toaster, waving away the thin trail of smoke like it might erase the evidence. Joe sat at the counter, legs swinging, chin resting on one hand, watching, amused. Priscilla walked in, towel in hand, eyes already knowing. I was trying, Adrian said, half defensive, half defeated. She took the bread from his hand, gently opened the trash can, and dropped it in without a word. Try the stove next time, she said softly. It listens better. Joe giggled. Adrian turned to him. Traitor. The boy grinned, mouth full of cereal. It was the first real smile Adrian had seen in weeks. No hesitation, no hiding. He didn't say anything, just watched his son chew, the bowl between small hands, the teddy bear seated beside him like an honored guest. Priscilla cracked 2 eggs into a pan, her movements easy now, familiar. Adrian stepped aside, gave her space. He didn't know what this morning was exactly, but it felt right, or at least like a start. Joe reached for Adrian's hand with one of his own, and Priscilla's with the other. No words, just connection. They stood like that for a moment, silent, 3 hands tangled across a breakfast counter that had never felt this full. Outside, the rain had stopped. Inside, something else had begun. Adrian looked at his son, then at the woman he almost overlooked. I almost missed this, he whispered. Priscilla didn't answer. She just placed the eggs on a plate, slid them toward him and said, Don't burn these. A week had passed. No more midnight cries, no more calls through the walls, just the soft hum of a house learning how to breathe again. Adrian sat on the living room floor, legs crossed, Joe asleep against his chest, one hand on the boy's back, rising and falling with every steady breath. The TV played low in the background, some old cartoon neither of them had really been watching. They hadn't needed it. Across the room, Priscilla sat on the rug, flipping through a picture book. She wasn't reading out loud, just turning pages, quietly, like she didn't want to wake anyone. Or maybe like she didn't want the moment to end. Adrian looked at her. She met his gaze. No tension, no fear, only a calm understanding that hadn't been there before. He gently adjusted Joe, cradling the boy closer. He sleeps better now, he said. Priscilla nodded. He trusts the quiet again. Adrian rested his chin on his son's head. I took time off, he said, cleared the calendar. Her eyes widened slightly. For how long? I don't know yet, he answered, but long enough to matter. Silence settled. Not heavy, just full. Adrian looked around, at the couch still dented from a day of cartoons, the blanket Joe refused to let go of, the plate of half-eaten grapes Priscilla had cut up hours ago. This wasn't perfect, it wasn't polished, but for the first time, it felt like home. He reached out, slid the picture book closer to him. Joe stirred but didn't wake. You still want to take those classes? He asked. Priscilla hesitated. I might. You'll have whatever you need, he said, and not just because of Joe, but because people who show up should be seen. She blinked. Once. Then gave the smallest smile. I'm not going anywhere. Adrian nodded. Neither was he. Sometimes love doesn't arrive dressed the way you expect. Sometimes it shows up in an apron, in lullabies sung through cracked doors, in the hands that never pulled away. And if you're lucky, you learn to stay. If this story stirred something in you, a memory, a feeling, or even just a moment of stillness, don't leave quietly. At Elevated Heart Stories, we share real moments that move hearts and open eyes. So take a second to subscribe, like this video, and let us know where in the world you're watching from, because your voice might be the light someone else is waiting for. Until next time, stay kind, stay human, and keep your heart elevated. Your